Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today is the big one. I've been talking about some of the traitor Primarchs recently, mostly telling you why Lorgar is the best, and why Angron is such a great and tragic character, despite his relatively simple history. But today we are going to tackle the largest question, the biggest question, the most important question. I'm failing to do the dramatic thing by being unable to speak, that in all of Warhammer 40k, which is, did Magnus actually do nothing wrong? I mean, that's the meme, isn't it? That's the statement. Magnus did nothing wrong. But the question is it actually true? Is Magnus actually innocent? Is he just a poor boy from a poor family? I don't know why I went there. Or did he actually, quite badly just fuck everything up? Are the two mutually exclusive? Or can they in fact be the same thing? So, Magnus is a weird one, okay? I like Magnus. He ranks highly in terms of the Primarchs for me, and actually when I sat down the other day and thought, what are my, really, if I'm going to put them in order, my favourite Primarchs, it's kind of worrying because the traitors kind of come a bit higher than the loyalists, which is a little worrying, and Guilliman is probably far too far up the list. I realised that Magnus is actually pretty close to the top as well, because Magnus is he's just a very interesting and different character. In a way, he's quite human. He's similar to Lorgar in that respect for me, Magnus. He has a touch of essentially human arrogance. Everyone knows that one person, right? Everyone knows that person in their life who they know a lot about a given subject. They are a borderline expert in a given subject. They know a considerable amount about it, and they use this as justification to express that they know pretty much everything about every subject. Their area of expertise in one thing basically means that they are smarter than everyone else in the room, that they clearly know more about what you're talking about than you do, because, well, we know all about this. I get that vibe from Magnus quite heavily. Magnus is a very strange mix, I think, of a visionary and someone who is perhaps on the wrong side of arrogance. Magnus actually has some fairly noble ideals. He has some great ambitions. He wants to elevate the human race. He wants humanity to unlock its full potential, to actually, live up to everything they could be. He wants to spread knowledge. He wants to allow people to unlock, the full range of what they can and should be, which is admirable. It's an amazing quality to have. It is someone who is attempting to literally improve everything about the people around them. At the same time, though, his method of doing so is very, well, it is kind of arrogant. There's an expectation from Magnus, it feels to me anyway, that because he is this smart, because he knows all of this stuff, you should just accept that what he says is right. You should just accept it. I mean, Magnus has dealt with the warp a vast amount more than pretty much anyone else, excluding, of course, the Emperor, perhaps Malcador. But he has swum in the great ocean many a time. So when he tells you that this is the way forward, when he tells you that this is the way that humanity should be, when he tells you that you should not fear anything because he, Magnus, has overcome and conquered, and so can you, it's said with a hint of, do as I say, because I know better. On the one hand, it's kind of easy to see how that would come about. Magnus is unquestionably vastly powerful. His psychic ability is off the charts. He is insanely strong. He has a ridiculous mind, even for a Primarch. But at the same time, he kind of allows the level that he is operating at to influence how he deals with other people, how he deals with his brothers. One of the things that I think is a really good kind of like a window, a small insight into Magnus's flaw. I think more than anything, it's a flaw. He's kind of assumption of superiority, his kind of approach to trying to get other people to believe what he believes, is when the Primarchs are gathering. I think it's all in all, but I can't remember specifically. He has a slight run-in with Mortarion. Mortarion, as we know, is incredibly anti-warp, he's incredibly anti-psyker, he is anti-magic, he hates all of that shit with a burning passion, which makes his eventual fate somewhere between ironic and kind of depressing. There is a conversation whereby Magnus has an opportunity to kind of sway one of his brothers, a brother who he does not get on with. Mortarion does not like the way that Magnus operates, what Magnus does, the way Magnus thinks. Magnus maybe could go a little bit softer. He could try and sway Mortarion slightly. He could leave the subject of Mortarion's ignorance, and of course to Magnus it is ignorance, it's just blind superstition to him at that point. And he could talk to him as though he is simply his brother, not as someone to be not condescended to, but preached at. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he has a conversation with Mortarion that does nothing to convince Mortarion that Magnus is anything other than a fucking witchy weirdo. He makes some comment about how the Death Shroud, there is 7 of them and they need to be 49 paces, 7 times 7, which is the sacred... Now, if I can remember the word that comes after the sacred bit, I'll be impressed myself. It's like the sacred Olejet or something. I don't know. Some sacred shit from some ancient civilization, and how interesting and significant that is. That is a brilliant and short, but very powerful kind of view into the way Magnus's mind works. He can't just tell people something. He has to flood it. He has to go over the board. He has to go overboard. He has to go over the top. Knowledge must be imparted at all costs. This is not the time nor the place, but this person must know this because I, Magnus, knows this. Magnus does have a significant flaw. He has done quite a lot wrong because he has this force of will whereby he's Magnus. He knows everything. He is the strongest psychically, he is the most intelligent, he is the most knowledgeable, he has studied more than anyone else, he has seen the patterns underlying the universe. He goes on about it a fair bit. Like, it's not a subtle thing, and it's not something where, if you read 1,000 Suns, you are not sitting there going, I wonder if Magnus ever thinks to himself, I don't know what I'm doing. He never thinks that. He doesn't consider it even for a second. Magnus always knows what is best. He knows what to do. He knows how to go forward. He considers himself to be essentially an endless fount of knowledge, and yet he does acknowledge that there is always more to learn. But the problem is that the curiosity is not tempered. It's not kind of dampened down around those who fear or are worried about the way that he's going. Hence his interaction with Mortarion. Mortarion is not interested in the sacred numbers of whatever the hell Magnus is talking about. Mortarion is not interested in the significance of this. All he sees is his brother dabbling more and more in forces that he should not dabble with. It's kind of easy to see why Magnus can feel alienated and frustrated, because he has superstitious brothers. I mean, if you look at Leman Russ, the way that rune priests use their power is not different from the way librarians really use their power. They may consider it to be different, but the kind of proof is in the way that they interact. You know, when Ahriman is fighting, can't remember his name, begins with an O, because I've been trying to remember that stupid sacred Olejet, whatever the fuck it was. I've forgotten the name of the the priest. But when he is they are both fighting in the warp. They have removed themselves from their bodies, or more accurately, Ahriman removed him from his body forcibly, and they fight in the warp. If they can both get there, if they can both interact with void predators, if they both have that ability, the powers are not that different, clearly. But of course, the Space Wolves don't see it that way. They're a superstitious bunch. That is part of their genetic makeup, that's part of their belief system, that's part of their culture, and it serves them well for the job that they have been born to do. Magnus could find ways, possibly, to bridge that gap, to improve upon relationships, to make it so that it doesn't look like he is charging headlong into the unknown with the goal of dragging everyone along with him. But he doesn't do that because he's Magnus, he knows best. He's an interesting character in that respect. He's not stupid. Far from it. He is arrogant, he is incredibly knowledgeable, but his self-belief is essentially what turns him, kind of what breaks him down. He is so convinced of his superiority, of his knowledge, that it never really occurs to him that there could be something that is clouding his vision, there could be something that is playing him, there could be something that is making everything that he believes to be true a lie. But he's too smart for that to happen, so he doesn't have any idea that that is the case. And so you end up with the unfortunate situation of the Thousand Sons, despite Magnus believing they've been cured, once again falling to the flesh change, becoming corrupted. It's something that maybe could have been avoided had Magnus not had the flaw that he had, but it's something that wasn't avoided. The big thing, of course, the most kind of pivotal moment when it comes to Magnus, and I think the heresy as a whole, because Magnus did a lot to assist the traitor forces, even without meaning to or realising that he had until it was too late, is of course Magnus' folly, where he makes his way to Terra to inform his father of Horus's treachery and proceeds to royally fuck everything up in the process. That is of course the thing where it's like Magnus did nothing wrong. With the rest of Magnus' life, he did do stuff wrong. He approached people wrong. He had an arrogance and self-confidence that was possibly not warranted. These are all flaws. These are all things that he could have done better, but they were all redeemable things, and they were things done with good intentions, the intention to elevate the human race. I think of all of the things that Magnus does, of all of the things that Magnus did in the lead up to the climax of the Horus heresy, Horus versus the Emperor, really the only thing that he didn't do wrong in some respect was attempt to warn the Emperor. I mean, the way he went about it was not great. You don't really want to break down the defensive seals preventing demonic hordes from entering Terra in an effort to tell your father that, hey, there's a big horde of people approaching Terra. That's obviously not what you want. But in terms of Magnus's attitude and in terms of what Magnus has always sought to achieve, his aim and his goal, what he actually wanted out of that, I think was of the purest intention. He may have screwed up, but that is not the same as doing something wrong on purpose. There's a difference between Magnus turning traitor and breaking down the seal so that the webway is now open to Terra, and there is a difference between Magnus attempting to do something in a way that is pure of heart but goes wrong. He just made a mistake. He didn't actually do anything wrong specifically. He saw a situation whereby the Emperor was in danger, where Terra was in danger, where everything about the Crusade was in danger, and he did the only thing that he felt he could in that circumstance, which was to warn him. He had no faster way of getting there. He had no way of making a communication that would definitely get through. He was clear that, whatever was happening with Horus was clearly warp influenced. There was clearly something greater going on. He needed to deliver that message in person, and he had to make sure that the Emperor knew, because without the Emperor knowing, everything could have been lost. As with a lot of the things that Magnus did, it wasn't an act of arrogance, even though arrogance was undeniably part of his character. It was a misguided attempt to fix a problem. He'd already tried to fix the problem once and failed. And when he realised he'd failed, when he realised that he hadn't done what he had set out to do, he basically took it upon himself to do something that he knew he shouldn't. That's the thing as well. It's kind of easy in that kind of situation to go, well, he knew he shouldn't have done it, so why did he do it? There's a level of self-sacrifice there that I think gets lost in the meme of Magnus did nothing wrong. He knew full well that he would be censored for this. He would be in serious trouble. He may well end up alongside his lost brothers for this. You know, he was given, under no uncertain terms, the order to stop dabbling in the warp, to remove Psychers from his forces, to cease everything that he had striven to achieve, with the ultimate goal of helping humanity. He knew that if he publicly proved himself to have ignored those orders and carried on regardless, even worse, actually taken that evidence firsthand to the Emperor himself, he would be in severe trouble. He would be in the shit in no uncertain terms. But he did it anyway. He just went. It cost him a huge amount in terms of power, in terms of effort, in terms of energy, in terms of thralls. It was an insane thing to do. And yet, to him, it was the only way to ensure that Horus did not gain a foothold. It was the only way to make sure that the Emperor knew what was happening with his favoured son, and it had to be done, no matter what the cost to him personally. I mean, when you look at it like that, how could you ever say that he did do something wrong? The way he entered Terra was bad. The way that he caused damage to Terra itself, in a way, in the end, was bad. But his intentions were completely clear, his intentions were completely pure. So, even though he made mistakes, even though he messed up, even though his arrogance was a severe flaw that frankly made him a bit of an easy target, he also had that kind of special lack of self-preservation that kind of makes heroic attempts possible. It didn't work, which is the biggest tragedy for Horus, for Magnus, I think, the fact that it didn't work. But he still tried, and I don't think you can ever genuinely say that he did something wrong in attempting to warn his father of treachery that could end the Imperium. He's an interesting character. He's a very human character. Again, I think that's one of the things I like about most. I mean, when it comes to both Lorgar and Magnus, it's not surprising to see, it's not surprising that they got on so well. It's not surprising that even though they shared a kind of a different viewpoint on certain things, their overall attitude was actually quite similar. The pursuit of knowledge, the desire to know the kind of underpinnings of the universe, how everything works, the desire to provide a future for mankind that is better than it is now. They both had that. They approached it in very different ways, don't get me wrong. I mean, Lorgar was all about the religion. He was all about more the human soul, I think, whereas Magnus was more about the human brain than anything else. But it's easy to see why they got on so well, and really, Magnus did do nothing wrong. Magnus was a good and mostly loyal son of the Emperor who genuinely did just have his best interests at heart. The execution didn't work, but the attempt was absolutely worthy. So yeah, that is basically why I like Magnus so much. He's pretty cool, and he can travel through the webway just by being a giant, astral celestial being of light, and so on. I mean, sadly, he has got the nipple horns, but, not everyone's perfect. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. The question is, do you like Magnus yourself? Do you think he did nothing wrong, or do you think he fucked up royally? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will... Oh yeah, in the meantime, click the things, that thing, the other things, all the things. Click them if you like, don't if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.